And I got to tell you, the entire interview is pretty damn interesting. But we're going to get into the good stuff. All right. Yeah, right here. So let's just come down here and we will start right here. It looks pretty darn bad when Lexi Hull crashed headfirst into Seattle Storm's Gabby Williams just one game after taking an elbow to the.
Lexi Hull has dropped some major revelations during her recent Glamour magazine sit-down, revealing insider details about resentment directed at the Indiana Fever due to Caitlin Clark's presence, along with addressing the DeWanna Bonner controversy. Bonner famously departed Indianapolis to reunite with her romantic partner on the Phoenix Mercury roster. While official statements never confirmed this angle, many observers remain convinced this was the driving factor behind her sudden move. The Glamour feature contains numerous compelling moments worth examining. Hull's physical toughness became immediately apparent when discussing her brutal collision with Seattle Storm's Gabby Williams. This incident occurred merely days after absorbing an elbow strike during Minnesota's matchup. Recovery time wasn't an option if the Fever wanted postseason qualification.
An elbow to the face hole in a matchup against the Minnesota Lynx, but there was no option to take a beat and recover if she wanted to help the Fever clinch their playoffs spot in the playoffs. Even that, adding a bloody lip to the collection a week later against the Chicago Sky. Quote, I have played through a lot worse than that, so I don't think I would have taken the game off even had we been a fully healthy team, Hull says.
Hull added another busted lip versus Chicago the following week. Dealing with far worse injuries has been part of the journey. Taking games off wouldn't have happened regardless of roster health. Hull explained, being on that court matters above everything else. The defender's grit and relentless energy make her an essential foundation piece for this franchise. Her battered appearance became emblematic of Indiana's entire campaign, constant punishment without pause. The troubles began when veteran star DeWanna Bonner abruptly departed during the season's opening stretch. Subsequently, devastating injuries piled up. Caitlin Clark, Sydney Colson, Arie McDonald, Sophie Cunningham, and additional players went down consecutively.
I think I'd still want to be like, put me out there. Lexi Hull is tough as nails. Let's just be real. She's real tough. Her defense, her hustle, man, I got to tell you, I think she's part of the core of this team. I'm just going to keep it real. For a moment, Hull's face felt like a symbol of the Fever story this season, taking hit after hit with no reprieve, starting with legend.
The franchise eventually carried 16 athletes thanks to emergency hardship exemptions. Recent reports indicate management is finally pursuing a senior health director position. The timing seems ridiculous. Only after catastrophic circumstances aligned did the organization address this glaring need. Professional operations demand these positions exist proactively, not reactively. Despite overwhelming obstacles, Indiana battled through the semi-final round, forcing Las Vegas into overtime during the deciding fifth contest. The entire WNBA community stood shocked at their resilience.
Taking hit after hit with no reprieve, starting with legendary veteran DeWanna Bonner's abrupt exit near the start of the season. In quick succession, the loss of Bonner was followed by a slew of season-ending injuries. First Caitlin Clark, then Sydney Colson, Arie McDonald, Sophie Cunningham, and so on, until their roster was up to 16 players with all their emergency hardship contracts. That is crazy.
When discussing Bonner's departure decision, Hull's words carried unmistakable disappointment and bewilderment. Having a veteran at my position, who'd achieved championship success and understood winning, was incredibly exciting. Learning from someone with those credentials seemed invaluable, Hull stated about the two-time champion. Then suddenly she's gone, leaving everyone confused. Nobody received any reasoning whatsoever. Bonner's character has faced scrutiny for months following this situation. Abandoning teammates without communication represents unacceptable conduct. To put things bluntly, Bonner essentially abandoned her squad and colleagues.
That is crazy. That's crazy. We just found out they're trying to hire a senior director of health. Good Lord. It only took the planets aligning in a nightmare scenario for the Fever to have actually done that. Be professional. That should have been done a long time ago. Through all the adversity, the Fever managed to claw their way through the semifinals, pushing the Aces into overtime in Game 5 to the
Departing without conversations or explanations demonstrates disrespectful, unprofessional behavior lacking basic integrity. The whole situation appears genuinely pathetic. Similar to handling roster injuries, Hull noted Bonner's exit strengthened the remaining group's unity and determination. The motivation actually increased. Not receiving explanations proved extremely difficult, yet it brought everyone closer. The message became clear. This current roster represents the team. Supporting one another, showing love, fighting together, staying committed, nobody's leaving.
Game 5 to the shock of the entire WNBA community, fandom. Speaking to Hull about Bonner's decision to leave the Fever, it seemed to me like there was still lingering hurt and confusion. Quote, I was super, super, super excited because finally there's a player in my position that I can look up to that has won in the league and has all these accomplishments and knows.
Complete solidarity. Bonner's departure apparently angered the squad and fueled their competitive fire. Outstanding outcome from terrible circumstances. Does Hull believe, like numerous Fever supporters, that opponents target her franchise differently than other teams? Absolutely. Resentment definitely exists regarding the Fever because of publicity, spotlight, and fan attendance since Caitlin Clark joined. Other squads have been overheard discussing in their facilities about preventing Indiana victories. While certain players and former athletes have attempted dismissing this notion, Hull contends it's not necessarily negative. If additional motivation to defeat us stems from factors beyond our influence, so be it.
And has all these accomplishments and knows what it takes. And I can learn something from her, Hull says of the two-time championship-winning vet. And then she randomly leaves. And we're all just kind of like, quote, what happened, question mark. We were never given an explanation. Boy, honestly, we've been questioning DeWanna Bonner's character.
If that drives competitors to elevate their performance, the league benefits. Everyone deserves facing opponents at peak intensity. Indiana consistently faces everyone's maximum effort. Completely accurate assessment. Zero doubt exists about this reality. The Fever face hostility from competitors, league officials, and various entities. This treatment began immediately upon Clark's arrival. Supporters have endured countless derogatory labels.
Been questioning DeWanna Bonner's character for months and months and months, calling it into question. This is not how you leave a team and your teammates. DeWanna Bonner, for lack of a better way of putting it, and you guys know I'm going to keep it raw, shit on the Indiana Fever and her own team to leave. I'm not going to say anything to anybody. That's some low rent, lack of class.
The treatment of incoming fans has been remarkable. Instead of welcoming the massive audience expansion, players, referees, and administrators have seemingly worked to drive newcomers away. Continued coverage of this league happens partly because it frustrates those opposed to it. Honest assessment reveals the basketball quality often proved challenging to watch. However, knowing certain league elements despise the Indiana Fever and their fan base while wanting certain people excluded makes staying worthwhile. This isn't exaggeration. As long as Caitlin Clark competes professionally, that viewership won't disappear.
NBA pay one step further in speaking to Glamour magazine for a feature story. We're being so grossly almost taken advantage of. It should be illegal. The amount of money that Caitlin Clark has made the league is insane. She's getting 0% of it because we have no rev share. She has less than $80,000 a year and she's bringing in like hundreds of millions of dollars. It's insane. Unpopular opinion, even if they got a rev share, she would be making no money. I'm going to be honest. Being like Caitlin Clark she's getting 0% of it. Caitlin Clark would be still getting a number that rounds to 0.
When Sophie Cunningham eventually switches teams, coverage will follow her destination as well. Count on it. Hull's candor speaks volumes. The jealousy is tangible. Conversations from opposing locker rooms confirm it. DeWanna Bonner's actions provided unexpected motivation. What a classy situation, right?
Caitlin Clark would be still getting a number that rounds to 0%. Even if they had a rev split. In fact, if there was, I'm not joking when I say this, but Dawana Bonner would be making more money from any sort of rev split than Caitlin Clark. Marina Mabrey will be making 4 times more money in any rev split than Caitlin Clark. More than likely, if it's salary based. Or if it's equally split, let's just say, hypothetically, the players in their rev split.
Here's an uncomfortable truth for traditional fans and their established perspectives. The league improves once Dawana Bonner retires. A dozen or 15 additional names could populate that list. Once these particular individuals exit, genuine growth becomes possible. That's the reality. Recent footage emerged featuring Chris Brickley, recognized as among the elite basketball skill developers globally. His resume includes working with numerous professional athletes, with Jimmy Butler among his notable clientele. Carmelo Anthony holds the distinction of being his initial professional client, establishing Brickley's credentials in the basketball development community.
Equally split, let's just say, hypothetically, the players in their rev split get the most that they can realistically get is 20%. 50% of the WNBA revenue that the league has. Let's just say 20% is the most they get. That 20% is then split between like 200 players. What will be 200 players in the next year? So that means like every team basically gets less than 1%. Like it is going to be something that will round down to 0% pretty much. She will still.
An interesting perspective exists regarding the actual impact individual skill developers provide. Many execute similar workout regimens and drills. The genuine advantage these prominent figures offer stems from the caliber of competition available during training sessions rather than revolutionary teaching methods. Consider how development programs operate. When elite talent like Drew Hanlon hosts training camps, high-profile professionals such as Joel Embiid and Jason Tatum participate together. These athletes compete directly against each other during their sessions. However, scrimmage situations require additional bodies. This necessity brings talented college athletes into the equation, exceptionally skilled Division I players who may not reach professional status but possess remarkable abilities.
Still be getting 0% of money. Even if they got a revenue split, she'd be getting. I understand the sentiment, but even if they got a revenue split, she'd be getting 0% of the money. Like, it's like if Caitlin Clark could bring $100 million to the WNBA, and if they had a revenue split, every single player will be entitled to equal amount of money. Like, I don't understand. Like, I get why you're bringing up Caitlin Clark's name fee. Like, it is to show that.
One example involves a former American East Conference standout who earned all-conference recognition twice. While not destined for the professional ranks, this athlete spent summers training alongside Embiid, Tatum, and other established professionals through Hanlon's program. These collegiate players serve as high-level sparring partners, creating legitimate competitive scenarios. The critical factor becomes evident. Attending camps run by renowned developers provides access to extraordinary competition. Working against Embiid or Tatum, alongside other gifted athletes, offers exponentially greater value than the specific exercises prescribed. Professional-level opponents won't reveal their signature moves during these sessions, making preparation against fresh, talented competition invaluable. Elite skill developers attract elite talent, creating an environment where participants push each other beyond normal limits.
Show that the players are earning absolutely nothing from the money that she's bringing in, which she is. And I get the sentiment, but like, she still gets 0%. She still gets a, like, 0% of that. And ironically, like, should Caitlin Clark get a cut of the league revenue? Absolutely. Should Fee get a cut of the league revenue? Yeah. Like, I agree. I mean that. Nafisa Collier, we saw with those All-Star votes, Nafisa Collier is an extremely popular player.
This dynamic differs vastly from training exclusively with local options. Any competent basketball instructor can replicate drilling sequences. Watching instructional clinics from prominent trainers allows anyone to copy their methodology. The distinction lies in subtle details and, crucially, the ecosystem these established names have cultivated. Requiring trainers to travel to a player's location eliminates many advantages, particularly access to facilities and competition networks built over years. This context makes recent revelations about Caitlin Clark's situation particularly noteworthy. During a conversation, Brickley discussed how certain franchises maintain strict policies regarding player development during initial contract years.
We saw with those All-Star votes, Nafisa Collier is an extremely popular player. And like, it's funny with some of these things, because I do think Nafisa Collier has a bit of an ulterior motive with these negotiations, and I do think the players are using their leverage and in ways they can. But like, I don't think Nafisa Collier is a bad person. Jesus, like, Nafisa Collier is absolutely like, is a hard person in general to dislike. Like, I think when these CBA negotiations end, you will probably never hear me criticize Nafisa Collier again.
He specifically mentioned encountering this with Clark following her debut season. Communication between Brickley and Clark had been ongoing for multiple years, with plans to collaborate. Those plans encountered obstacles. Rather than Clark traveling to Brickley's established New York base, arrangements would have required him relocating to Indianapolis. While respecting that young roster members typically utilize their franchise's practice facilities, this arrangement severely limited potential.
Hear me criticize Nafisa Collier again, because Nafisa Collier is legitimately a good person. But I don't know. I don't know what's there to be accomplished by this. Players online continue to receive backlash for calling for a higher share in revenue, or they feel like our safer working conditions, such as more rest time between games on opposition coasts. I can never understand regular fans taking ownership side. But like, there has to be alternatives, and it's like, okay, cool.
The Indiana organization maintained control over Clark's off-season development during her rookie campaign, preventing collaboration with Brickley. This decision proved questionable given the franchise's handling of various situations throughout that season. Brickley expressed hope that subsequent off-seasons might allow Clark to train in New York, acknowledging her transformative impact on women's professional basketball and expressing genuine enthusiasm about potentially working together. This stance from Indiana raised eyebrows among observers. Numerous prominent professional trainers have expressed interest in developing Clark's game, yet the organization appeared invested in keeping her development exclusively in Indianapolis with Keith Porter, her designated team trainer.
There has to be alternatives, and it's like, okay, cool. So it's like they want to play less games and make more money. They already don't really play back-to-backs. Like, if they play less games, the TV stuff isn't there. And I actually agree that they probably play too many games in too short a time. But that's mostly because they play in the off-season. Like, they have this off-season for games, and it's a tough thing to always look at, because
while fan loyalty often defended this approach, questioning why someone with Brickley's credentials, approximately 60 professional clients, including names like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Carmelo Anthony, would be dismissed in favor of someone whose most notable achievement involves developing Alyssa Thomas seems reasonable. The comparison becomes starker when examining Porter's track record. Making Dejanai Carrington appear competent represents his most visible success. Meanwhile, Brickley's client roster reads like an all-star team. Exposure to such an environment, even briefly, could provide immeasurable value. Details remain unclear regarding Clark's exact training arrangements during her first offseason, though indications suggest it wasn't exclusively with Porter, as she had shared her training plans before his official hiring.